Right, hello everyone and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host Ross Baxter and today is episode 61 of the series. The Student Art Podcast is a weekly series where I bring on guests from the film and game industries to talk about their journey and thoughts on student education. The podcast is live on 11 other platforms such as Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and last but not least we've got YouTube. If you guys are tuning in on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and as always, turn on notifications to be notified every single week when the podcast is live. So the Student Art Podcast is sponsored by The Rookies. There's simply no better way to launch your career and start sharing your amazing work online. Throughout their website, you can create your own portfolio, enter lots of contests that take place all year round, and has an incredible community for non-professional digital artists. From hobbyists, students, self-taught artists, to even people wanting to make a career change, the Rookies community brings everyone together, allowing you to be surrounded by people on the same journey as you. So if you want to showcase your portfolio, grow as an artist, and track your progress, sign up to the Rookies today. And by gosh, do we have an amazing guest for you today. We have a Naughty Dog artist, Charlie Foreman, on the show. Thanks for coming on the show, man. How's it going?
It's going great, man. How about you?
I'm doing awesome. No, but thanks for coming on, man. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And as always, before we even get into the podcast, everyone, you know the rules. That means you have to go spam Charlie's follow button right now. So all of his ArtStation links, his Twitter, you name it, his social media are in the links in the description below. So everyone, go give him a follow. Is there any other kind of social media platforms besides Twitter and ArtStation that you use, man?
I have LinkedIn, but I never really check it that much anymore.
Perfect.
Probably later.
Awesome. So ArtStation, Twitter, that's the main two guys. So as always, man, we always just start with basic introductions. Just tell us a wee about yourself, what you do, and I guess the big kind of question, what got you into art?
Yeah. So hi all, I'm Charlie, like you said. I currently work at Naughty Dog. I'm a contractor on Last of Us 2. I started there in about April 30th, so I've been there almost 8 months now. This is my first job in the game industry, and I'm a texture artist. And what I really want to do with my life, since I'm still figuring everything out, is I want to be a material artist. Mm-hmm. A lot of texture artists at Naughty Dog make materials, but I've come in pretty late into the project. So I'm doing a lot of other stuff, and it's really awesome because I've really been focused on materials for the last 2 years. So this is learning everything in the pipeline that maybe I was lacking, and it's really nice because it's patching up all my weak points, and I'm learning lots, and it's good because it's cool to be dedicated on what you want to do, but you can't I can't be a material artist if I don't know the environment pipeline. And
of course,
you kind of learn that in school and you do it in your own time, but nothing beats actually being in the studio.
Yeah, it's nothing beats the energy of being around just people who love doing what you do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And as for what got me into art, so I've really loved video games since I was 5, and I'm 24 now.
Awesome.
So that hasn't changed.
Same age as me. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I actually was not into art until only about, I'd say, 3 years ago ish.
Okay.
I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, which is in Georgia in the U.S. It's southeast. It's apparently a pretty big school, but I don't actually know. Oh, that college. Every website says this college is big in the country. Totally. It's all. But it was a really nice experience. And there I studied game design. My first year I spent it mostly on foundation, so the next 3 years were on the major. And I spent 2 years as a game designer. I had really liked game design. I still do. As a fundamental, I think it's cool to break down and stuff.
Of course.
But after I realized, I think the only 2 games that I was breaking down on such a deep level were Fire Emblem and League of Legends. I realized it's pretty limiting, I think. So I switched to art because I had taken a lot of art classes because it's an art school, and my work there was better than what I had in my game design portfolio after 2 years. And I'm oh God, I'm graduating in a year and I need to have something to apply with. So I spent my senior year almost kind of playing catch up.
Okay.
I made none of my work from school is in my portfolio, zero. So I graduated with this portfolio. It was like 4 pieces at the time. It was like this train that's still in my portfolio that I did as personal work, my senior project, and two pretty dull environments that I made that look like Babies vs. Environment from art school. And those are
Okay.
no longer in there. Uh, and then I went home. I'm
Hmm.
from Chicago, Illinois, so
Awesome.
I stayed with my dad, and he was like, Char, you can get you can like work on personal work and find a job, or you can get a part-time job, but I won't make you get a part-time job because his reasoning was simple. He's like, if you're working at finding a job, that is a job, and if you get a part-time job, it's going to pull away from not only like having a healthy like social life and spending time with your family,
Of course, yeah.
it's also going to take away from time you could be working on a portfolio. So I didn't want to take that for granted because I think a lot of people's parents would have made them go get a job. So I made a schedule. I had a career coach I worked with. I had a mentor who was from my alma mater. And I went to the library every day. I played Pokemon Go for like 2 hours a day to
You got to
exercise.
get those hours in.
Got to get those steps in.
Yep, you got to. Good decisions
uh,
were made.
when I'd hang out with my friends, even, I would work for like 30, 40 minutes. They would make fun of me. They would say, like, man, Charlie's looking at those textures again. I went to the library because it was really quiet. And I would apply for like one job a day, and I'd work on my portfolio a little bit. I'd slowly remove pieces. But that summer, I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I had a little bit of like a rut.
Mhm.
I sat in my room one day and I'm like, I'm not improving. It had only been like 3 months since graduation. And in my head, I gave myself this 10-month like period. I'm like, in my
Okay.
head, okay, all the people that graduated the year before me are way ahead of me, but they are only getting jobs like now. And I'm like, that's like the average. So I gave myself that kind of time limit. It's like, okay, in 10 months, I need to work as hard as these people are or harder to get jobs. So
Yeah.
I would also reach out to SCAD alumni that were in the
Oh,
industry.
wait, what were they
So
called? It. Sorry.
SCAD, that's the abbreviation for my school.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, yeah. So I reached out to a ton of them. Some of them replied, some I never heard from. Some of them I'm still friends with too. So if you're listening to this, you know who you are. You guys are awesome. So they gave me advice on my portfolio. I asked them, but not only that, I also asked about how they got into the industry because I like hearing other people's stories, kind of like you do on these,
On
and
the
asking like
podcast.
other people. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's fun. Like you hear different people's stories. I've heard back from some alumni that graduated from my school like 15 years ago, or they were really different back then. The
Right.
program
Wow.
didn't exist.
Yeah.
Um, but still, it's like valuable to hear their story because even though the industry is so different now, like uh, you still like follow a framework, you know?
Yeah. There's still kind of like value in everything. Like that's the thing. Is like at the end of the day when it comes to like the whole concept of learning, it's like kind of learning to kind of adapt to people's different ways of like how can I say it? It's like each generation has its value, and it's trying to learn like what they did right, what they did wrong, and then apply that to your own learning curve, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And like, if everyone is like taking time out to like talk to you, like it means a lot too, because it means like, hey, you're not coming off like as a, just kind of, hey, can you get me a job here? I never asked, I think I only asked like one person because I was already close with them, like,
Okay.
hey, do you think you can get me like in here? But I never asked them about that. I always just asked about them because I care about like hearing people's experience.
Yeah, and it's like
Um,
it's a respect thing as well. It's like trying to get that right balance in between.
yeah, yeah. But then in October, I think it was October, so about a year ago, um, I posted, I think it was September, ooh, it doesn't matter. I posted this wood chip substance on my portfolio, and it got like, I think at the time it had like 30 likes. And for
Right.
me, I was like, wow, 30 likes, that's a
Awesome.
lot. These environments I've been working on for 6 to 7 weeks get like 10, and these textures are getting
Yeah.
like, they take me like an hour. So I was like, oh, and I also was, I had been dabbling in substance for about 2 months, like super casually. Like I never posted or used it like in an environment. Like I had used like I think one, but I had gone to GDC that year, and I went to Daniel Tiger's talk.
I'm
And
so jealous. I've never been to
oh,
GDC yet.
oh, it's so good. I'm going again this year, 3 years in a row.
Oh gosh darn it! I need to catch up.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It's also, if you plan it, it's not as expensive as Twitter makes it out to be. If you get a
Right.
roommate and you get the Expo Pass, which is 200 USD, uh, and like then the flight is like the main thing that eats up cost.
Yeah.
So, but the rest of it is not that expensive. I'm trying to find like two people to room with this year because my hotel was dirt cheap last year, which was really awesome.
Like, I need to give it time. I need to kind of like look into it because like literally because I live in Scotland and like there's so many people, my friends who have gone over and they're saying like how amazing it is, and I've just never gone over. So I need to just give it a go one day.
Yeah, it's really fun. I love like getting to meet new people. Actually, I got this job because of GDC.
All right, really, right, okay, awesome, right.
Yeah, yeah. So I will advocate its worth forever now.
Yep.
um,
Forever a fan.
yeah, but I went to his talk and I didn't know who he was at the time because I hadn't browsed ArtStation like at all.
Hmm.
And he is like a really really amazing material artist. I think I've watched like every tutorial that he's put out, like pretty much ever. Him and Josh Lynch.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Josh Lynch.
No, both of them fantastic artists.
Definitely.
And like many others too. But after that, I was like, oh, this is cool. So, because I had went because I was with my buddy from Chicago who was being like a CA, like helping to run the conference, and I was like, hey, this is the lead environmentalist in Destiny. Don't you like Destiny? And I wanted to learn more about environment art, so we went, and I guess that was actually life changing
Yeah.
because
Wow.
in October. I started doing more substances, and I was getting better like really fast. It was the first time I looked at one of my own projects, and I was like, "This is pretty good." So I changed the thumbnails a million times. I started to try and mimic his portfolio style because um, I heard like if you want to be in the industry, you got to be like the folks in the industry.
Hmm.
Um, so I just kind of like I originally had my balls like in color coded order, like
Okay.
he does, because that's like a presentation thing. But then I changed it back and I just like rearranged them by like date. I think they're still out of order because I can't remember and I'm too lazy to check. But
No,
um,
no, I know where you're coming from. It's like it's what you said. That you said an amazing point there. It's like everyone kind of like how can I say it? It's like obviously it's like a certain standard that you kind of have to kind of live up to in a way. Well, no, I wouldn't say live up to, but there's a kind of obviously standard that all artists obviously have to meet in regards to, for example, texturing, etc. Like you'll have a certain standard in terms of the quality of the materials and your understanding of materials, etc. And like you said, when it came to like the layout and stuff like that, helped you, I guess, come across maybe as more professional as well. And like layout is such an important one, and just the way you present your work, and like you said, even about the thumbnails, like that's one thing that I think's one thing I hope so many students who are listening right now like take advantage of because like thumbnails is like at the end of the day you want people like to be drawn in into your work if you know what I mean, and it's like what get people to click basically, and then the other thing I want to talk about based on what you just said there as well is like the main point that Charlie just mentioned there, by the way, is like he got a job through attending events and stuff. So give events a go. I'm going to start giving more events a go. It's about exploration, giving things a try, and yeah, I highly recommend reaching out your comfort zone and going to events.
yeah, and it's really scary too. Like that first year, I like I think I made like probably two valuable connections.
Right?
One of them I still talk to fairly frequently, and I will fix my lighting on this new material. He told
Well,
me
is he
that.
giving you feedback already?
Yeah, he messaged me the other day and told me, and I was like, yeah, but I had to post this new one for November because I hadn't posted any personal work in 5 months.
Oh, right,
So I
okay.
was like, so it's like, oh, this is going to be revised.
That's okay.
But he,
We'll let you off. We'll let you off. No pressure.
but I do have to say, this is a very unfortunate fact, but at GDC you do not want to put like student on your badge.
Okay.
Um, I have seen this go around on like Twitter, um, but a majority of people I think are still unaware. Oop, that was a car horn.
Sound effects, even
Oh,
better.
you did hear that one.
It's alright, man.
This is the car horn for
Yeah,
students.
add effects. We'll use it for the introduction.
I think most developers like 60-65%, maybe 70, um, you know, they're really nice, and if they see student on your badge, they'll approach you and be like, "Hey, you're learning." Um, but unfortunately, there are 30% or maybe less that are like going to see that on your badge and just not really want to talk to you.
Right.
Um, And in a student's head they'll be like, well, they're not someone I want to associate anyway with, but you never know. Every person will give you something that you can learn from.
Yeah, of course.
I think honestly, like, the thing that school can't really teach you is how you present yourself to people in the industry, unless those kind of people come to give a talk at your school and you can actually interact with them in person. And that's a really big benefit of going to events, is you get to do that and get your feet wet.
Do you mean as in the ability just through just your social interaction with people, or do you mean as in, so obviously it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah, on you go.
yeah. Oh, like, different than like meet like just meeting people on Twitter and like talking through like LinkedIn and stuff. It's always just better to like
Yeah,
speak to a human in person, shoot the shit,
yeah,
So
of course. Because like that's the thing is as well when it comes to like your art, it's like obviously like art is like 90%, like or nearly 100. It's like obviously when it comes to getting a job, if you can prove that you can obviously do the artwork, like if you're a texture artist and you're listening right now and you're trying to get better at your texturing, and obviously prove that you can do that. But one of the main things that we tend to forget, because particularly artists, is that we tend to be indoor kind of people, and we kind of get trapped indoors because we love it that much. And but the social aspect, it goes such a long way, and being able to just talk to people freely and getting out more and actually doing like the just life things, experiencing things, and like Charlie said, going to events and actually experiencing what it's like talking to people.
it helps that I'm very, very extroverted.
Yeah.
Unusually so, that a lot of people have told me, say, especially for someone in the game industry, I guess. But I've met a lot of extroverted people, so I don't know what they're talking about.
Well, it makes two of us. Perfect. Well, that's the thing is,
But
that is it, like I know, like my dad's going to hate me when I say this, but it's like I love talking. I'm not going to lie, but talking's like the greatest thing ever. It's like I could just talk, and it's great to have another fellow talker. So welcome once again.
oh, I've been in this club for ever, man. Wait, when's your birthday?
When's my birthday? September the 12th.
Oh, I'm okay, cool. I'm like 3 months older than you, so I've been in the talking club longer than
Damn
you.
it, you're winning.
Oh,
This is
gotcha.
this is not fair. How
Got
dare
it.
you come on my podcast and outrule me on this?
Guess I'm
This is
taking it over. Hi, I'm Charlie Foreman, the new host of the podcast. This is my
brilliant.
guest, Ross Baxter.
Thank you for having me on, Charlie. Gosh, damn it, this is brilliant. I did not expect this today, Charlie. Okay, awesome.
I forgot where I was. I was talking
Yeah,
about
what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we're talking about how
October,
to talk to people.
October. That was where we were in like the timeline. So I started shifting like pretty much exclusively to substances.
Hmm.
I did a mentorship, but my environment fell pretty far behind because I was like really struggling like to work on environments. I was so much more into materials. Like, I spent all my time like working on materials, um, and I realized, like, man, I'm meeting material artists like looks so much more appealing. Like,
Yeah.
you're just in substance all day, and like I was really, really enjoying it. It was the first time, I think, that I was really enjoying environment art, because before, like I said, I was just kind of doing it because I had already done it in school and like I needed it. Like, but I was like learning so much about it from like the the two mentors that I had, and like all the various like alumni that were giving me advice, that I was really starting to like it, but I was just not good at the doing.
Hmm.
So when I was realized, like, hey, Substance is like making my ArtStation follower count go up, and in my head, my logic was follower count goes up when people like your work. So, and then a few people in the industry finally started following me. It wasn't just like students. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm starting to catch the eyes of people who have been doing this for a while. So I'm just gonna keep doing this. Um,
Awesome.
and I reached out to like more people, and then before GDC, I met Javier Perez over LinkedIn and Facebook and Discord, and he and I hung out a little bit at GDC, and and it's funny because now I work with him because he works at Sony San Diego, and they're collabing with Naughty Dog on this game. So,
Hmm.
uh, so now we get to work together, sort of, because he's kind of in a different city, but
Yeah, yeah.
he
No.
was definitely like, someone I asked about, like, how'd you become a material artist, and he was like, well, I started as an environment artist, um, and then it kind of branches off from there. And then after GDC, I had a few offers, which was really great. But I took the Naughty Dog one, and that was because I met the recruiter, and I went to her talk panels.
Right.
And as she was talking, she listed out a bunch of things that they look for, and I was like, I have all these things. So I wait.
Also-
So I waited in line. My tablet was not working.
Oh,
'cause
gosh.
So I had downloaded my portfolio onto it, but I was like to my buddy Rob, "You have to give me your tablet, please, please, please,
Save me.
please,
Save
please
me.
give me your tablet, Rob." So thanks, Rob, if you're listening to this,
Shout
because
out to Rob.
but yeah, she liked my work. She practically threw her card in my face, and I ran into that recruiter a few more times. And then I had an art test Monday, and then 2 weeks later I turned it in, and then I had the offer like 12 hours after I turned it in, which was a little fast, I thought, but they really needed people, I guess. But it was really scary, and I had another interview that same day, so.
So it was all kicking off pretty much all at the same time, all happening at once.
Yeah, and then they said you have to be out here in 3 weeks, and my dad was like, "Well, we're going to California to look for a house for you."
Awesome. That's
But
that's what I'm talking about. Because like when it comes to like just like you said already at the start, like for example, like I've done like this is literally my 61st episode on the podcast, and I think I've had about 65 people on because I've done a few podcasts with multiple people, and through my time in the podcast, it's like it's crazy. It's like you said right at the start. It's like everyone has like their different ways of getting in, and like you never know what to expect. Like you might just pop around the corner at an event, or you might know someone who knows someone. You never know. So it's like at the end of the day, it's by giving things a go and just getting out there and getting involved and keeping in touch, and most importantly, just being persistent, going after what you want. And like your story, that's a great story, and I'm so thankful once again for saying it, because it's like it just shows you it's like no matter where you are, like there's so many opportunities. You just have to go out and explore what options are available, basically.
It's funny. The people point about talking to people. I'd actually applied to Naughty Dog like 3 or 4 times before, and because they always had job openings open. So some days where I couldn't find like a job I wanted to apply to, I would just apply there again.
Yeah.
And I got denied there every time. But as soon as I met the recruiter in person and got to spend like at least like not even like more than 3 minutes in front of her face, she told me to apply again. And I was like, I applied before. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter. Just apply again. So who knows? Maybe just like being there in person.
Yeah.
Like, now that she's like, okay, this guy seems maybe pretty cool or not a complete psychopath. Which, oh man, you were wrong, Candace. I'm a psychopath. You know this now.
Gosh damn it.
Yeah. So that could have made a good difference, I could say, I guess.
Of course.
So it all loops back. So I can't actually know for sure, but
it's all happened, and it's at the end of the day, man. It's like you've got to Naughty Dog. It's literally like one of the biggest studios in the world. So congratulations, and it's like what a year you've had. I can just tell, and it's so awesome to hear about like your excitement as well, because there's nothing better than enjoying what you do, if you know what I mean, and geeking out, just playing games or whatever it is, watching films and making movies, etc. There's so many awesome things. As always, when it comes to obviously your journey and stuff, so obviously you got the job and stuff, but one of the things when it comes to like the Student Art podcast is like student education, and then it'll be really cool to talk about substance designer, etc., and just material art in general, because that's your passion, and it'd be awesome to go down those avenues. So as always, I always like to ask, so when it came to education and stuff, so obviously you went to college. Is there anything in particular in relation to like material art, like if you learned more about it, it would obviously improve your chances of getting a job quicker? Like what would you like universities and colleges to teach in regards to materials, just to increase people's chances?
So I didn't explicitly mention it, but in that time, so my substance designer, as a material artist, I'm entirely self-taught.
Right. Wow. Right. Okay. Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah. I learned designer after I graduated. So when I started doing the library notes to the grindstone.
Yeah.
When I was at SCAD, we learned like Painter, UE4, and like the Maya pipeline for like basic stuff. Mm-hmm. And our thesis project for our senior project, or whatever the school likes to call it, studio, we called it. but some schools will call it thesis. They were like making small games for like 20 weeks, and then we submit them to E3 for a student competition. SCAD had been in that before. Usually Ringling College goes, Columbia College Chicago, representing the home city. They all like go. So that's like a big deal for the school. Obviously because of marketing, because like, hey, your school's student competition is in E3 or it's set up at GDC at a booth. So a lot of energy like goes to that. Underrated though, one thing that we do by doing that kind of project is we use Perforce. And when I got to Naughty Dog, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, learning Perforce is like, why is this not exemplified more at school? Yeah. It's just kind of like you can use whatever version control you want. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, being able to know how a version control software works is like the biggest thing I think in a studio that students need to learn, because I think 90% of it is you're just doing what you normally do with extra tools that the studio has that you have to learn.
Yeah.
And learning how not to explode the game with version control.
Of course.
Because, of course, my first, 3-4 months in Naughty Dog, I was still busting things up in version control. And I actually just did, literally the other day, I was importing, textures, and I look over to my coworker, and I'm like, Kate, why is this not working? Caitlin. And she's like, oh, you gotta, delete it out of, BAM and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, my God. This is the worst. I should, but that's okay, because everyone still makes mistakes, even when they've been there for 10 years, and that's what helped. That's what helped comfort me in the studio too. It's like, I'm making mistakes. I've been here 3 months. Like, dude, don't worry about it.
That's what you're meant to do when you start out. It's all about making mistakes and realizing that that's just part and parcel of the job. It's literally it applies to everyone at all levels, like you said.
One of my coworkers said if Maya never crashed, games would ship 2 years earlier.
That's very true.
It's true. But yeah, so in terms of materials, I only took I think they teach Substance Designer at SCAD now. We did have a materials course, but it was more for VFX, using Arnold and stuff, and B2M when that was still a thing. But now it's a Substance Designer course, at least from what I've heard. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't before, I wasn't really focusing on it, but in art classes, I feel what we get at SCAD is a pretty good baseline for everything. And the point of the studio is to give yourself a production environment, self-made. So I was actually the lead for my thesis, and we had 6-7 people, 10 total, but 2 sound designers weren't in any of our classes, obviously, right. And an animator. And I'm trying to think. One of my really, really good friends, one of my best friends from that studio is my friend Christine. She works at EA as a concept artist now, and she and I were looking for jobs basically at the same time, together. Awesome. And she had a different kind of path, but we followed the same sort of trend of improving old projects and learning new techniques after school. Mm-hmm. Very the self-discipline is a big part of it. I think the problem with school in general, and this isn't something that school can fix because it's just inherent, is that self-discipline and grades are not intertwined in the slightest, in my opinion.
Yep, I completely agree.
Yeah, because I think there weren't many professors at SCAD. I deserved to finish with probably a B average, but I finished I think I got straight A's and 2 B's, 3 B's in all my time in my major.
Right, congratulations, awesome.
But that's the thing. I don't find that an accomplishment, because I feel I just met the requirements for the grade instead of pushing it, and those grades don't matter. If your portfolio's Garbo, like mine was, and I graduated and I have really good GPA, 3.8, and then it's can't find a job. It's well, grade does not matter because my work isn't what these companies are looking for.
I completely agree. That's the thing. It's the whole kind of I get it why they're there, but it's acknowledging the fact that based on the point you said, there's they're not priority number one in the sense it's not the end and be all. It's when it comes to grades, they're there to give you structure and learn how to be organized and obviously pursue something, but the grade shouldn't be the focal point at the end of the curriculum or whatever you're working at. it should be the quality of the art. And it's literally in all the episodes I've done so far in the podcast, it's literally the go-to. So in 61 episodes so far, everyone said like this is literally one of the main points. But you also have to realize and appreciate though that you still have to put the work in and show that you're determined. Because if anyone's passing the word around that you're lazy and stuff, or you're not the best at getting on with in a team, then it's going to backfire against you basically.
Yeah, my main thing at work, even still today, is I'm always worried that I'm not doing enough.
Just
like,
right, okay, fair enough.
Because like sometimes we're like crunching right now because it's like end of the game. We got the release date announced, everything's like coming together.
Awesome.
And I'm always like, oh no, I hope I'm doing something, even when I'm doing something very trivial, like just vert painting, like the same area for, an 8, 9, 10-hour day. It's like, whoa, I hope there's not anything else that like I need to be doing because like I'm going to feel really bad if I'm not. So
yeah,
just want to make sure like, I'm putting my foot forward and being a part of the team. I guess that's an insecurity I think that will go away like over time. But I've seen like that too. People are like, every artist has imposter syndrome, quote unquote. And it never really goes away.
Yeah, it just never goes. Well, like that's the thing though. It's like when it comes to art though, like I wouldn't say. Oh, how can I say? I would say I'm not really that type of person, but it's just because I've always just been about. Obviously, it's like you want to do well and stuff, but I always value appreciating like your worth, if you know what I mean, and understanding like you have value because like you've got a job at Naughty Dog for a reason, so they trust you already. Like the trust is there. And trust goes a long way, and it shows that once again that you're great at what you do, and once you get the job, it's just down to just getting on with the work, and most importantly, having fun and enjoying it. And like you said, with your artwork, like you really worked hard to get where you wanted to go, and but I completely see where you're coming from, though.
Yeah. But yeah, like going back to like the school thing about like grades and like self-discipline and stuff like that is during school I like won't even like sugarcoat it. Like I did not have self-discipline like at all. Like senior year when I was pivoting, I lived with 4 other guys and they're like my best friends still. Like we still talk like every day, like our big old apartment, and we played a ton of games. Like we all did our work and I like would do a little personal work. But man, like we spend our weekends like drinking and making food and watching cartoons and playing video games, the dream, the college. I mean, like enjoying your college life. But definitely, and I guess like in the context of if you want to like do well in school and stuff like that, like yeah, you're doing everything you should be. But if you want to like get a job like right out of school, you'd have to like nose to the grindstone, probably no social life.
Yeah.
Because you have classwork on top of everything else. So
of course,
and that's the only reason it's so bloated.
So when it comes to obviously you're a material artist and you love texturing and stuff. The one question I kind of want to ask you is like in your eyes, this is probably a big question to answer, but it's like what in your eyes makes a good material?
Yeah. So always like good height maps are the first thing I look for. I'm sure this has been beaten over the head now because there's lots of interviews with like material artists, but height maps are always like the most important thing. You need to get like forms like showing. So when I'm looking on ArtStation, I don't do it as much anymore since I'm like so busy with my job and I don't want to look at ArtStation when I go home. But when I was grinding, and I actually have been getting back to doing this, is I'll just type Substance Designer into ArtStation because it will usually tag every material, because people will usually put that down as a tag. I'll turn off Show Pro Member Artwork because you never know. Some people don't have Pro and they have good work, so you always got to look for that thumbnail that catches your eye.
Yeah.
And I also never look. There are like a few materials where I look at them and I know what tutorial they're from, so I usually scroll past. I usually scroll past them. So it's not that they're bad materials. They're like all good, but I've seen them before, so
of course
I know how to watch a video as well, and make it well. But if I see the same material, I have to run by like materials and be like, oh, this is off the tutorial, but it was presented well and they got me to click it, so I'm gonna give it a like because they managed to make it stand out,
Yeah.
So I usually try to look for like more unique things, but that's just like a personal thing. Because for the longest time, I didn't have bricks in my portfolio because I was so sick of seeing bricks.
Right?
But now it's
Just
like,
getting fed up with them. No more bricks in my life. I hate bricks.
well, I love bricks. I
You love
do,
bricks.
but I didn't want to like have them on because at the time I was like, my portfolio needs to be different from everyone else.
Yeah.
Which is why I did the keyboard keys.
Oh, it's
Um,
amazing,
there
man. They're great.
there there are a few keyboard keys I've seen on um, the site on ArtStation. I've seen one that's actually like way better than mine. That's like I really liked. I don't remember who it was. I remember when I went over at GDC to the Insomniac booth. One of the guys there was looking over my stuff. He said, "You have to remove this because it's gross." And I was, I started laughing.
Right.
It was a joke.
Oh, right, okay.
It was a joke, but
You just saw my face reaction there. I was like, wait, what?
I did. I was like, no, it was a joke. It was a joke. He was like this, so I guess that means it did its job.
Cool.
So I really liked. That was how I knew, like, okay, this is. And whenever I ask people, that's always the piece they seem to remember, even though it's not even like my favorite, but it was
Yeah.
like the first one I put together like relatively quickly.
Well,
And it was the
I
one
think you got
actually
so
I
many
got.
awesome materials, man. I think you got great materials. Like the track one. I love the track one.
That one's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's sick. That's awesome.
I spent like way too long on this one
Oh,
too.
there's nothing wrong. No such thing as way too long. There's nothing
could-
better
I-
than geeking out. Just keep pressing buttons until you just get exhausted.
I wanna improve it one day. I want to make better wood and I want to make better rocks.
Nice.
But that one was like the first one where I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I sent this off to one of my contacts, and he was like, this is great work. This is like AAA work. And I was like in my head, oh, I'm making progress. so that one's a benchmark. So I like it. I also love my JoJo's Bizarre Adventure materials because I'm a complete geek. So
Even better. You can't go wrong with that, man. Like, because that's the thing. Is like when it comes to obviously materials, like there's so many. Like you said, one thing that I'm really glad that you brought up. So. Obviously, it's great to watch tutorials and stuff, but a lot of people, how can I say it, copy them too close. And then
Yeah.
the main thing as well is just because you copied something, it doesn't mean you understood it. And the one thing that I always highly make sure that everyone who's tuning in right now is when you're doing a tutorial, make sure you understand it, especially when it comes to materials. So when it comes to PBR, etc., or anything material related, understand the material. So take Charlie's, he made this awesome moss material. Understanding how it's meant to look, how it's meant to react with lighting, etc., how all the types of maps are meant to work, and truly understanding the meaning of the words, etc. Because without that, then there's no purpose. Because like, tutorials are great at the end of the day, but it's like it's about the learning and instilling that so that your pipeline just gets quicker.
in my last podcast, I said I was going to put out tutorials, and that was in June, and it's December.
Wait, have you not put them out yet?
No.
Oh gosh, Charlie, come on, man.
I was very burned out.
All right, okay, we'll let you off.
I still kind of am, but I have started to do a little personal work again. So hopefully next year I'll have a few out because I'd like to give back because this community was like super helpful, for getting me to where I am. So that's the other thing. Like I worked hard, but did not do this alone. Like 100%. There were lots of people, even the ones I've never met. If I like their project, it means that they inspired me in some way. So, and that's probably a few thousand. So rip, can't really name all these people.
It's a lot of people. Nah, I see where you're coming from because at the end of the day, it's like you have to appreciate where where everyone's giving like you support and acknowledge where you've come from because. At the end of the day, it's like it's a journey that we all go on, and like we said at the start, it's like everyone's different, but make sure to remember who's helped you out, and